From WXII 12 News, this is
We want to
breaking
make sure
news.
that everybody has somewhere to go indoors, out of the storm, safe, neutral environment.
Right now on the Triad CW, escaping Florence. What building in the Triad is opening its doors to those impacted by this hurricane?
And tracking Hurricane Florence, the Carolinas are seeing the first effects of that dangerous storm that's moving closer and closer to the state. Team coverage from the Triad to the coast.
Well, good Thursday morning, everybody. I'm Margaret Johnson.
And I'm Devontae McKenneth. Our team coverage continues this Thursday morning from up and down the North and South Carolina coast.
First, though, here's an update on those school closings and delays for you. Alamance Burlington schools are open today, but after-school activities are canceled. Guilford County schools will have early dismissal today. Students will be released 2 hours early.
And Winston-Salem and Forsyth County schools are closed both today and tomorrow, and there are many more school delays and closings. You can check them out right now at the bottom of your screen.
Right now, we want to get the latest information on this storm as we check in with meteorologist Brian Slocum. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, to be clear to the parents, I don't really expect too much impact locally for today. We're going to start to see the breeze picking up later today and tonight, and rain chances will soon follow, getting into Friday and through the weekend. The storm itself just about here, starting to see some outer bands in the southern banks from Cape Hatteras down toward Atlantic Beach and Emerald Isle. We'll start to move on Ocracoke Island as well. Storm less than 200 miles from shore at this point. Winds starting to pick up at Hatteras over 20 miles per hour, but most of the winds across both North and South Carolina are in the 10 to 20 mile per hour range with higher gusts. This is the 8 o'clock advisory, and I'm seeing this for the very first time. The forward speed has slowed to 12 miles per hour. This was anticipated. The storm would start to slow down as it approached the coast. Winds are the same around the core, and they do extend out 80 miles for hurricane force winds from the center, and almost 200-mile-an-hour tropical storm winds extending out from the center. The tropical storm winds extend 200 miles out from the center, to be clear on that. Storm expected to make landfall late tonight, sometime after midnight or early tomorrow morning, and then continue its slow down, bringing heavy rain, storm surge, coastal flooding, and a whole lot of wind onshore. Now, looking at this track, it has not really changed initially moving inland from the 5 a.m. update, which did bring this track a little bit farther to the north. That puts us closer to the core of the heavy rains and keeping us certainly well into the tropical storm wind potential. The storm is expected to begin to track into the western part of the state and around that Sunday into Monday, and quickly exit Monday night into Tuesday. So we'll have a few days of rain from this, and if we're close to that heavy rain core, those rainfall totals may add up quickly. We'll have much more on how much rain we're expecting and how strong the winds will be, what you still need to prepare for coming up in a bit.
And Brian, thank you. Jared Hill starts our team coverage from Wilmington.
Yes, he does. Jared, we do know that those evacuation orders went into effect Wednesday morning. So did people actually get out?
To our knowledge, a lot of people did. I mean, we obviously have spoken to a number of folks who said they weren't going to leave their houses because either they couldn't or they didn't know what would happen when it came back. But you can see right here behind me that evacuation order is in effect. There are police guarding the entrance into Wrightsville Beach, not letting anybody in there until further notice, really. We got a chance to walk through or to see this last night, and you could see some of the people coming through the checkpoint trying to get a last check at their homes or their business on the other side there before they really moved away for the duration of this storm. Inside of Wrightsville Beach yesterday, it was empty, desolated. There were boarded up windows everywhere, no one on the streets. There was even police officers riding around with bullhorns telling people that the evacuation order is in effect. Get out if you can. If you can't, you might be subject to being left back there without really having any access to any emergency responders once the storm really does get underway, because not only are they trying to keep everyone else safe, but they have to be safe themselves if they can hope to help anyone when they really need that assistance. Since then, we have moved into Wilmington, which is where a lot of the folks who have been evacuating are as well. They're coming from all over the place. We've seen a lot of families in our hotels, but even in Wilmington, a lot of the stuff is boarded up. A lot of the restaurants and stores and things are closed there also. As you can tell right now, the wind is starting to pick up. The skies are getting a little bit dark, and we're waiting for Hurricane Florence to come this way. Reporting live in Wilmington, Jared Hill, WXII 12 News.
Well, Jared, thank you. Our Meredith Stutz is in Winston-Salem this morning.
And Meredith, the big question now, how are shelters getting ready for those evacuees?
Well, Devontae, many are filling up quickly, and some here in Winston-Salem have plenty of space for anybody who still wants to evacuate and get to a safe shelter. We're here at the Lawrence Joel Veterans Memorial Coliseum here, and this morning there are still hundreds of spots available. And I am joined by a woman. Her name is Deborah Stokes, and she came all the way from Wilmington, where Jared was, because she felt the need. It was not safe, and she wanted to get out. She is one of 23 people here officially who spent the night last night here at this shelter. The shelter can hold up to 1,000 people, making it the largest shelter in North Carolina so far. So, Deborah, tell us, why did you want to get out?
I just felt the need to leave, and if any of my family is listening to me, if y'all haven't made a movement yet, please do so, and anyone else that needs to go to a shelter, I recommend that you go.
And tell us, what were you concerned about? You said you've never evacuated before, so why now?
The water surge. They're talking about the water surge, the high power winds. I don't know if we can withstand that, so it was best to leave.
Hopefully you made the right decision. Thank you so much for listening, and welcome to Winston-Salem. We certainly hope it wasn't under these conditions, but hopefully you can get some rest and stay safe. And again, we have a list of all those open shelters on our website right now for the state of North Carolina. Just head on over to WXII12.com. Reporting live in Winston-Salem, Meredith Stutz, WXII 12 News.
Meredith, thank you. Millions of people are going to be impacted by Hurricane Florence, and everyone needs to know what to do in case of that emergency.
Yeah, you got that one right. Our Bria Love is in studio this morning. Bria, what are some of the things that people should do if they do find themselves in danger?
Margaret, Devontae, good morning. If people have any damage from the hurricane, they want to make sure they're most prepared as possible. First, they need to have the Ready NC app downloaded. The app gives you information on weather conditions, evacuations, and power outages. If you have phone service, you want to make sure you call 211. This is a free service, and the people on the line will give you recovery information. Now, this hurricane may be a Category 2, but you don't want to take that lightly. Even Waffle House, who never closes, is opening its storm center. It's doing that to keep an eye on Florence. FEMA came up with the phrase Waffle House Index as a way to measure how badly storms affect an area. If the Waffle House closes, officials believe that area must have been hit hard.
Yeah.
No, I guess that's
Waffle House closes, you're in trouble. And when Jim Cantori with the Weather Center,
you better be leaving.
He's even bigger trouble.
Yeah. I heard he was in Wilmington. So
yeah, he is.
That's a sign if you live there. And
even Lester Holt is in North Carolina.
Yes,
so.
he is.
Wow.
Waffle House Index. We made it make more weather maps.
I guess so. That's the new one to make. We'll try to do that during the break.
We've got 500 as it is today, so yeah, good stuff.
You're waiting for another update coming up. What?
Well, it just came in. It just came in. I've got another one
Okay.
coming in at 11. No change in track on this update. It's kind of the intermediate advisories. It doesn't happen very often unless something substantial happens, but the storm has slowed down. That was anticipated too.
Just at about 12 miles per hour. So before it was at 15. So no huge change, just slowed down a bit. Pressure still the same, winds extending.
But still keep those guards up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this is a storm. Carly's going to go more into the historical comparisons a little bit anyway. As far as what we expect this storm to do at this point. Storm's just offshore, and you can see that it got a little ragged on the southern side. It's a big storm, of course, but we had some wind shear in the upper levels that helped to take apart some of the eye wall even across the southern flank of the storm. That's why the winds came down to a 110. It makes it a Cat 2. Folks, the message this morning is please don't say it's a Cat 2 now. What are we worried about at this point? You need to worry about a lot because this storm is huge in scope. It brings the tropical storm force winds out almost 200 miles. It's going to cause power outages, and depending on where this tracks inland, we're going to see quite a bit of rain over the area. Unfortunately, in the last few model runs, there's been another kind of divergence and where the models are thinking. Pretty big spread from Charleston up toward Asheville at this point, and we're only looking at about 3 days out from here. So the general consensus is a little bit of a flatter track, maybe not as far south, but notice that some of these models are trying to take it right through the western part of the state. That puts us closer to the core of the storm and closer to where the biggest threat for us locally is going to be, and that's from heavy rain and the flooding that would ensue from that. We're talking double-digit rainfall total possibilities as the storm begins to curve, depending on how this tracks. Now you can see as we go through your hour-by-hour forecast, that storm slowly moving on shore near Wilmington, likely sometime in the early morning hours tomorrow. You can see that heavy rain core is very, very close, and look how slow this storm is moving. We're into Sunday morning now. It's barely moved a couple of 100 miles at this point, slowly making that northerly turn and then starting to lift out. So rainfall possibilities from the Euro model. Most of the heavy stuff is south of us. Looking at lower rainfall totals, but we're very close to that high rainfall potential. And for some of the more high resolution models, those that keep it a little bit farther to the south, lesser rainfall totals expected. We're going with 5 to 10 inches of rain locally with heavier totals possible. And that puts those numbers, those rainfall numbers, compare quite a bit to Hurricane Matthew, among others, a few years ago, with more in the historical comparisons, which are important to kind of let us know how this could play out. Let's send it over to meteorologist Carly Cassidy for that.
Thanks, Brian. We were talking, even comparing it to Hurricane Hazel earlier when it was a Category 4 storm. As we said, just because it's a Category 2 does not mean you can let your guard down. Hurricane Matthew, which we've also been comparing this storm to, was a Category 2 and even 1 storm, as it did work its way along the South Carolina to North Carolina border. It caused a lot of extensive damage. Even those rainfall totals in Evergreen, North Carolina, the highest was almost 19 inches of rain. That's a lot of rain, and really, rain is really what does the most as far as destruction, damage, and also fatalities. So definitely need to keep an eye to that. Even cost about $1 billion just in damage. Now, another storm that we have been comparing this to is also Hurricane Floyd, also a Category 2 storm when it made landfall. Up to about 17 inches of rain, $6.5 billion in damage, and 51 fatalities. So definitely can't just say, oh, Category 2 storm, not as important. Definitely not the case. We still have that high risk of flooding, flash flooding especially, damaging winds, which will start to get gusty really around this afternoon and carry through into today. Now, into this weekend, excuse me. Now, Brian was also talking about those rainfall totals. We're seeing anywhere up to about 10 to even 13 inches from one model, so definitely very possible why we have that flash flood watch already in place for some of us down to the south. That goes until Saturday night. Wouldn't be surprised though if we start to see even more of us under the watch, some warnings really as we start to see a lot more of the rain and those storms make its way here. Now we also have some other impacts, the winds, so we're going to send things back over to Brian for a little bit more on our forecast.
As far as the winds are concerned, look, the rainfall impact beginning tomorrow, the wind impact beginning today. We have some breezy conditions in the forecast, really 10 to 20 mile-an-hour winds gusting to 25, and that increases tonight to about 20 to 30 miles per hour, gusting to 50 from time to time. So, and that will continue through at least Saturday, maybe even Sunday before that begins to subside a bit more. That heavy rain, though, is going to be the biggest threat, and whatever flooding that brings, that's going to favor more of our southern counties. The window for rain begins tomorrow, continues into Saturday. From there, it really depends on storm track. If the storm kind of pushes out through the mountains into Tennessee and Kentucky, we might not see much rain for Monday and Tuesday. This forecast is a work in progress, so stay tuned to 12 News.
I want to get some breaking news this morning at 8:13. Greensboro police are looking for a suspect who shot a woman, killing her unborn child. This happened around 1:30 this morning on Henry Street. The woman was rushed to the hospital in serious but stable condition, but her baby later died. Detectives are still trying to figure out what led up to that deadly shooting. And we are still tracking Florence this morning. More updates on this Category 2 beast in just a matter of minutes. We'll be right back.
Wow.